We're getting handsy on this episode of the Press Rewind Prince Lyrics podcast, and joining me to talk about Partyman B-side, Feel You Up, is Aisha Staggers. Welcome back to the show, Aisha.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
I'm glad to have you here. I know we were just talking about how you weren't extremely into the Batman soundtrack the way some of us were, but when I said I was doing B-sides and I mentioned Feel You Up, you're like, yeah, that's a song I can talk about, because you actually like Feel You Up even though it's a Batman B-side, correct?
Right. I do. I actually heard it when it was on the hits and the B-sides, and so that's the version that I'm most familiar with. But you were telling me before we got recording about the long stroke version, which I actually knew about, but I've never heard. And like I said, I still have the 1999 Deluxe and haven't opened it yet to listen to anything. So I plan to do that during my vacation next month.
Yeah, so I think one of the most interesting things about Feel You Up is probably its complicated history. Not really complicated, it's just it has a long history for a song that didn't end up until 1989 being a B-side to the second single off of the Batman soundtrack.
Right.
So Feel You Up dates all the way back to, I think Prince dates the original Feel You Up to late 1981. So the very early recording sessions for 1999, when Prince was starting to record songs that would end up on the 1999 album. And so the version of Feel You Up that's on the 1999 Super Deluxe edition that came out in 2019, I believe dates back to late 1981, which, you know, this is 8 years prior to it being finally released as a B-side to Partyman. So I think that is a pretty interesting tidbit of information. And then Prince decided to re-record it in 1986 with a slew of other Camille-like songs. Like I think he was recording it around the time he was recording Housequake and Rebirth of the Flesh. Rock Hard in a Funky Place. Yeah, Black Album, Rock Hard in a Funky Place. I mean, so he had his Camille moment in late 86, and it was gonna... So he decided to take this 1981 song. It didn't make the 1999 album, re-record it in his Camille voice, put it on the Camille album, but then, of course, Camille got scrapped, and then this song, Feel You Up, never made it on any configuration of Sign of the Times, which is what we ended up getting out of some of those songs, or the Black Album. So it took another 3 years after it was done before Prince decided to finally give it to everybody as the B-side to Partyman. So that's kind of interesting. I mean, the song has nothing to do with the soundtrack, with the movie. Camille is not a character that he sings from the perspective of on the Batman soundtrack, because Camille is not a character in the movie. So it's
kind of like a random addition.
Yeah, it's really quite random. It's really quite random. But when you heard it for the first time, the hits and B-sides, which honestly is the first time I heard it as well, I wasn't buying Batman era singles. What did you think about it?
Well, it's the first thing that I think whenever I hear Prince do the Camille voice is it immediately throws me back to Stevie Wonder's Maybe Your Baby, which is literally where he got the Camille voice from, the idea at least from that 1972 song from Talking Book, which, if people had been paying attention to photographs, that's actually one of the last albums he bought at Electric Fetus before he passed away. And I always flash back to that voice because I did see Prince perform that song with Stevie Wonder at an Essence festival or something to that nature. And when they sang it together, Prince actually did that part, and he did his Camille voice live. So it's really great, like, to make those musical connections whenever I hear Prince. And so obvious that it doesn't fit in the Batman era. When you listen to it, it's something that really does put you back to like 1987, 88. That sound. When you said it came from 81, it makes sense because I think but the phrase "feel you up" kind of like the last time I remember hearing that was in 16 Candles. And so that tells you how long ago that was. And so it does make, it does make sense that it was written in 1981 or so and first recorded then, because the language, it's the early 1980s language. But the spin for the 87, 88 version, it just, I think you can really see how he was doing things that were different to kind of separate himself from what he was doing with the revolution. You can actually hear this complete shift because in some ways the musical aspect is reminiscent of things he did in 84, 85, 86, but just bringing that nuance there with that Camille voice. He experimented with it with Love or Money, but here it's even more catching. And I think the reason is because the background vocals aren't as layered as they were for Love or Money.
Yeah. And the other thing, like, he was really experimenting the difference musically. I know this isn't a music podcast, but between the 81 version and the 86 version is the addition of horns. So the 81 Feel You Up has a very distinctive synth line, and then that is taken out. It's not completely removed, but instead of it being a synth line in the 86 version, he asks Eric Leeds to try to replicate that. And so now Eric is playing that line with his horns, which is a very distinct tonal shift, and also very reminiscent of other songs that he was making around this time, adding a lot of horns in his music. And that wasn't something that he was only replicating horns in the early 80s with his synthesizer, because he couldn't, he didn't have a horn player in his band. So
well, here's a funny little tidbit of information. So someone who worked for Rick James told this story about how the synthesizer sound, that horn sound that Prince had been using during that era, those were programmed by Patrice Rushen.
And
fascinating. Right. And that Prince had been playing them, Rick James overheard and stole Prince's programmed synthesizers, recorded street songs, and then sent them back. So the horn sound that you hear on 1999 is very similar to the horn sound. They sound identical to the horn sound on Rick James's "Give It to Me, Baby," because it's the same synthesizer.
Yep, I can hear it in my head now that you say it. That is a hilarious story. Those two, man.
It's just with Rick James, like something like what Rick James would do.
Yeah. What a rivalry they. I mean,
so
Prince was like
the horns though that he started using when he really brought Eric Leeds in. I think make all the difference.
Yeah,
I think it is part of his starting to evolve his sound, because he got rid of the band, but he kept that particular sound. He kept Eric Leeds' sound on saxophones and Matt Fink's sound on keyboards. And so I think that he had some sameness there, but also you could see he was going in a different direction here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it was a very stripped down sounding song in 81, and maybe he would have tweaked it more and added more to it if he actually intended it to be released on an album back then. But from a musical standpoint, it's definitely it's fuller and more fleshed out in its 86 Camille version, for sure, I would say. And then you mentioned the long stroke version, the 12-inch version. Now, that is the version that ended up being on the 12-inch release for Partyman. But it was also, that's the version that would have been on the Camille album. So the version that would have been on Camille, that's on any of the test pressings that are floating around out there, is the version that's now called the long stroke version. They just edited it down, of course, for the 7-inch, because it's like almost 7 minutes long.
Right.
and so they made it a much shorter version for the 7-inch. But just to clarify, so if anybody ever gets or making their own Camille mix, or maybe someday we'll see a re-release of Camille, official re-release, that should be the version that you either put on your mix or should be on a version that you get at some point in the future, is that long stroke version.
Well, I wonder if that is going to be on what's the guy who's
Jack White from the White Stripes?
Yeah. I wonder if that's going to be on that. He actually made an announcement over the weekend that he didn't intend to change anything or even re-engineer it. He had been mentioning that he's going to re-engineer it. Some fans got really upset, and he said he wasn't going to, so it would be in its purest form as he has it. I'm actually kind of interested in seeing what that sounds like.
Yeah, me too, because I think because the long stroke version, just be honest, it has not been re-released by the estate officially.
Right.
So if you go onto streaming services, you're not going to find it. And if you want to watch it or listen to it on YouTube, you got to find somebody's unofficial version, which does, of course, like if you have an MP3 version, of course, you can make your own mix and playlist that includes the long stroke. But if you're just trying to make it from what's available to you from streaming, all you have is the 7-inch version, which isn't technically the version that is going to be on Camille. So just, I mean, it's
not Untitled.
It's pedantic. It's not really that important. But if you're talking about some purity of the original Camille pressing, it would be the long stroke. Okay. What else? What I want to say about this song? It's like peak lascivious Prince. Like, this is him being just kind of a dirtbag a little bit with the lyrics and wanting to touch your body. Like, he really gets into the aspects of sexuality that other artists couldn't sing a song like this and probably get away with it quite as easily as Prince can, especially if he's putting on an alter ego. The song is called "Feel You Up," so you kind of know what you're gonna get.
Yeah, and I can understand why, like, if it had been thought to be on the 1999 album, as to why it wasn't really, because when you think about it, this was really Prince's first attempt at a commercial release, and that just would have remnants of Dirty Mind, so where no one could really play anything on it. So I think that decision to leave it off was one that was very calculated, so that it would be, this 1999 would be his breakthrough. I personally, knowing this, feel like he could have left Delirious off and put You Up on. I just don't like that song. But I can see why they would have left it off. And then I think in 87, I kind of wonder what would have happened if he had released the Black Album.
Yeah.
Because I feel like parts of his career, the trajectory would have been different.
Yeah, the combination of Camille and the Black Album being released back to back years like that, they're two very distinct recordings. Like, one is a very funk driven and one's more playful, and I mean, there's definitely funk in Camille, don't get me wrong. I mean, Housequake's on the album for God's sake, and so is Rock Hard and Funky Place. So it's less pop and more funk driven albums for sure. And who knows what that would have done for his next couple of years releases. Not sure. It's an interesting thought experiment, though.
Yeah, I think what threw a lot of listeners and definitely radio executives off was Love Sexy. That kind of changed things. And then the way that singles were released and the singles that were released kind of changed it too. But it would have been interesting to see how that would have played out, because I think that the Camille album would have actually had great reception at the time.
Yeah, it would have been a kind of a cool,
with the Black Album. Yeah,
you had to be in the know kind of situation, because it wouldn't have really crossed over, and that's fine. There might have been a few crossover instances, but he didn't. It wasn't going to be named a Prince album. called Camille. It was Camille. I mean, that was the
Right.
thing. So
And that is the challenge. That's why I think the Black album release with some of those songs would have been a very interesting release.
yeah, fascinating to think about what would have been.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's go through the lyrics of Feel You Up. I'll start with the first verse. I've been digging you for such a long time. You don't even know that I'm alive. Something about the way you walk just really blows my mind. Sorry, but I'm sick of all this jive. Okay? Okay, so for the first verse, to me, I'm getting vibes of like some of Prince's early works, that some of his early songs where he's attracted to someone who isn't really paying him any attention, kind of the songs that come to mind from his first couple of albums, that he was singing songs from this perspective. In Love from For You, and I Want to Be Your Lover is kind of like that from the Prince album, where he's got an unrequited crush, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And these first lyrics, like this first verse, is really just setting the stage of him talking about how he's seen this person from afar, basically. He's had a crush on her. He's, interested in her in a romantic or sexual way, but she's just not really paying him attention. Doesn't know he exists. Just he's not on her radar, I should say.
Yeah.
But he's sick of all this jive. Let's Work a little bit.
Yeah, because the song opens the same. The lyrics pretty much open the same way. And yes, I did get the "I Want to Be Your Lover" feel. That's something that's very it's very characteristic in Prince's lyrics. There is not an album that he has without a song that has these lyrics like, that you're not paying attention to me, I'm trying to get with you, etc. But the flip side of that is that he then has the songs where he is so boastful.
Yeah.
About how great and wonderful he is. But it's there's always the romantic aspect expressed in a sexual way in these kinds of songs, because he then relents to like, well, if I can touch you, sleep with you, whatever, I'm going to show you that I'm this great person to be with. So
yeah,
it's kind of funny in 2022 when you say it. I'm sure my near 20-year-old daughter would think that was cringy.
I mean, these lyrics get a little creepy sounding if you think about it. I guess
in 1981, it's kind of like, yeah.
Yeah, a different time.
When you reevaluate some of the lyrics, sometimes it's kind of like, oh, that's what people were saying back then. But it's not. It's like, how can you not? She always points it out to me whenever we listen to Prince, that sometimes she loves Prince, right? And she just like, new songs, it's like, oh, it's like, okay, explain to me why. And I'm like, oh yeah, I can see how that could be from your perspective, how that could be like, yeah.
Yeah, we're just so used to it, like it's hard for us to.
You grow up listening to it, and it's like, okay, that's just Prince being Prince. But for someone who's new to it, it's kind of like,
yeah, this is a song about Prince being Prince, and from a lyrical standpoint, not to say that he was ever this aggressively sexual with women. I don't know, I wasn't there, right. But this is like from a lyrical standpoint, from a thematic standpoint. As you mentioned, there's songs like this all over his discography, so we're just used to it. It's just part of his stage persona, part of his record persona. And now that he's got this Camille voice that he's using for this song, it can be Camille's persona. Camille can be anything. Right. Camille is everything, Camille's all over the board in that album. I mean, she's got lots of different themes that is covered in that, on that record. And what I like about the last line, he's talking about, you've been digging you for such a long time, you don't know I'm alive, woe is me, woe is me. And then he says, sorry, but I'm sick of all this jive. So you kind of get the impression like he's going to now take a stand, or he's going to make a move, or he's going to do something to make himself known to her. And that leads right into the chorus. And the chorus is, let me touch your body, baby. Let me feel you up. Come on, baby, come on. Let me feel you up. And he repeats that. Let me touch your body, baby. Let me feel you up. Come on, baby, come on. Let me feel you up. So that's his way of getting her attention, is to basically
Exactly.
ask
And
her if
that
he
would
can
definitely get
touch
women's
her.
attention, but not in a positive way necessarily. If somebody's not like feeling you and they're kind of ignoring you, and then the next thing you ask them is to touch them, it's kind of like, okay. But that is that's one of those things where when he writes that way, you kind of wonder, how was he approaching women? You know? Um
Mhm.
because it's like, if this is how you write about it, how are you doing it? And one of the things you have to realize is that he didn't really necessarily approach women. Alan Leeds and I had this long conversation one day where he was telling me how a former employee felt like they were all their job consisted of was setting Prince up on dates. So if Prince saw someone, he told this person, and they would go back and have to arrange a date. And that happened quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, these lyrics make it like today's language, we would call this person being a sex pest. Somebody who's
Mm-hmm.
badgering somebody else for sex or sexual favors or some sort of, physical interaction. But to your point, there's really been no accounts of this being a part of Prince's history. Like, he wasn't problematic from that
Yeah.
standpoint, as we would call it today. I mean, there's been nobody has come forward and said, yeah, Prince was super aggressive towards me all the time, always touching me, unwanted advances, yada yada. We don't really hear any of that. And there's been lots of
Yeah.
people that could have come forward if he was gonna have that kind of personality in real life.
Yeah. You know, he had his temperament and he had his ways about him, but no one has ever told me that he was like this, the way this song comes off. Um,
Hmm.
I think, it's one of those things where if you are a woman of a certain age and you hear this, it's not something that's uncommon. You've heard men approach you in this manner before, right? And you kind of just, like, exactly like you said, he's a sex pest, right? So it's just like, you wave it off, whatever, what have you, just a man trying to be a man and trying to get your attention. Nowadays, you would hear something like that. Like, he couldn't do this song now. Nowadays, you'd hear something like that, and it'd be kind of scary because there are men who are like that who have killed women
Hmm.
who didn't pay attention to them,
Yeah, to
right? And didn't
decline
open
their
that door.
advances.
So he wrote the song for the time that he was in, and it was a safer way of a safer time to release something like that. I don't think that he could have released it as a B-side now.
Agreed.
The chorus is very I think the thing is that he goes from this verse to this chorus, and the chorus is kind of a total like flip. Like, wait a second, you at first you're saying how you were trying to get with me and it was hard, and now all of a sudden you're just, yeah, really aggressive.
Very aggressive, very aggressive. Part of me just wonders if this is just, Prince putting something out that he would never do, but, using music as a way to express a thought, even if it's not a healthy thought. I mean, there's plenty of songs, not just Prince, but people in general who have written songs that you would question where that's coming from, but when you ask the author, they're just channeling some other personality or channeling some dark thoughts that they would never consider acting on, but just it's just a way to express something creatively that they have in their brain, that a lot of people have in their brain, messed up things. And to have that creative outlet, like, you can't blame, like, anybody who writes a movie with some really twisted things. I mean, my default isn't to think that that person is twisted just because they wrote a movie that has something that's really dark and disturbing in it. And so it's not really fair to think that, oh well, Prince, wow, this is really disgusting that he would write a song about just grabbing somebody that he's attracted to without their consent. No, I don't really get that impression. Yes, it sounds bad today, and it wouldn't work today, as you mentioned. It wouldn't work as a B-side today. They wouldn't even consider it.
Then again, it might. I mean, there was a man who said just grab him by the pussy and became president. So it is quite
Good point.
possible it would have been okay. But the thing of it for me is that Prince used the Camille voice very selectively. And I think it was to express those things that you said that people wouldn't ordinarily come out with, some of his darker thoughts and feelings. And I think that is why he ended up scrapping the Black Album. I think for him that voice gets those things out, because you can tell that when he switched, especially after he got into the Jehovah's Witness thing, he didn't rely on that voice so much. I think that at one time, part of him even thought that voice was evil itself. Because he got to a point where he stopped using it.
Yeah. And just the fact that he pulled a 5-year-old song out of the bag, out of his vault, and then attached it to the Camille persona tells you that he knew the song wasn't completely on the up and up in terms of its tone and lyrics. So he's like, yeah, I like this song. I dig it. How can I make this work? Oh, I'll do it in Camille's voice. That'll
and obviously he had an attachment to it for him to put it on the B-side of something. I think the songs that he's had attachments to that weren't releases, or he couldn't find a way to put on an album, he ended up putting them on B-sides.
Yeah, and he waited 3 years.
You could tell the songs that he was done with, he was done. They just went in the vault and never to be seen again. But some of the other ones that he did, that he might have had like some kind of attachment to, resurfaced in later years as B-sides.
Yeah, and then the only other thing that thematically might have made sense is because this is the B-side to Partyman. Partyman is a song that was sung from the perspective of the Joker. The Joker is a violent and deviant man, so maybe it makes sense to put another song on the flip side that also kind of has the same ideas of coming from somebody who isn't all there mentally, and he's okay with putting it on that. Like it wasn't going to be a B-side of Arms of Orion or Scandalous. Well, Scandalous, it could have worked, I guess, thematically. But
the thing is that Partyman is actually in his Camille voice.
There's yeah.
So I think that maybe he just did the flip side, same voice,
Yeah, it's not credited to Camille, but it's using the same.
No, but it is obviously that voice.
Yep. Yeah, so I guess there, even though it has no connections to Batman, there may be enough connections to Partyman in that single to make it work for him. To add it.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that if you think about where it's placed and then the movie, it seems right that would be a song like attributed to the Joker.
Yeah, because in that scene, he's also attracted, or the Joker's expressing attraction to Vicky Vale in that scene as well. Good point.
But he's also a rude, so.
Yes, very crude person. I'm sure this is something the Joker would say. Let me feel you up. Okay, moving on to the second verse. Very kind of similar stuff we're talking about here. Something about your body, baby, really gets me hot. I'm sweating, girl, and it's all because of you. I don't want your credit cards or anything you got. Feel you up is all I want to do. What do you say? So, again, very similar stuff here. I mean, is there anything intriguing about this verse to you, Aisha?
No, but you could tell that he's kind of ratcheted up the ante here a little bit, like in terms of the expression. And I think that he it's kind of one of those things now, like, let's really get to the nitty gritty. This is what I'm feeling. And so it's very straightforward. I think the only addition here that makes things a little different is that it's straight about, he's very clear that it's not about money, it's not about your possessions, it's you.
Yeah, kind of similar to what he expresses in Kiss. I just
Yeah.
want some of your extra time in your kiss. I don't need you to be fancy. I don't need you to watch Dynasty. I don't, you
Yeah. Well,
just
here
need
he
to
wants more
give
than a
me
kiss,
this.
though.
He wants, yes, you're right. He definitely ups the ante, as you mentioned. He wants to go further than first base. But yeah, that's basically what this verse is doing. It's just like you said, up in the ante. I'm sweating, girl, because it's you. I don't want your credit cards or anything you got. Fill you up as what you want to. It's all I want to do. What do you say? So now he's asking, what do you say? But then he
Mm-hmm.
just says, he goes right into the chorus after that, and the chorus is the same. Let me touch your body, baby. Let me feel you up. Come on, baby. Come on. Let me feel you up. And he repeats that again.
But at
So
least in that
yeah,
last verse, he did ask.
yeah, yep,
Yeah.
yep. That is true. I'm gonna see if he asked in the 1981 version. Let me quickly look. So in the second verse in the 1982 version, it's very similar. I don't know what to do. You really got me hot. I'm sweating, girl. It's all because of you. I don't want your credit cards or anything you got. Fill you up is all I want to do. Okay. So he doesn't ask. I mean, he says
Yeah.
okay with a question mark, but it's not more. It's more an explicit question in the
But
revised
that tells you
86
that
version.
he knew that times had changed and that he kind of had to fix that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
just subtly, just real subtle,
it's very
real subtle
subtle,
stuff.
it's clear that he was aware that times changed and how you talk to women has evolved, and he made the song evolve with it.
Hmm. Yep, without changing it completely and just rewriting it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So then after the second chorus, we get an interlude, and he's kind of just speaking in this, like kind of a pseudo rap. I ain't looking for a one night stand. I only want to feel you up. I don't really want to be your man. I only want to feel you up. Physical attraction, babe. It's what it's all about. Hot and cold reaction. Feel you up. Turn you out.
Now it's funny because this verse made me think about Gigolos Need Love Too.
Oh,
And it's really the opposite of that.
yeah.
Because in that song there's the description of this exact kind of relationship, but wanting something different.
Yeah. Wanting something more than just sex. Yeah. That's
Right.
what Gigolos
Right.
Get Lonely
And
Too is all about.
this is just that. Look, it's kind of like the end part of I can never take the place of your man. I may be qualified for a one night stand. Here, this is all he's talking about. I'm not sure if it's a friends with benefits situation that he, just a hookup situation that they get together from time to time, or is it just this one time?
Hmm. But what's confusing, a little bit confusing, is that first line in this intro. I ain't looking for a one night stand. I only want to feel you up. So is he literally just saying, I don't even want to have sex with you. I just want to touch your body. I'm wondering now if this is what he's trying to
Yeah,
say
I
in the
mean that is
song.
that is the confusing thing because it's like it's kind of like what someone told Torre for his book that there would be times where he didn't necessarily want to have sex with people but bathe them and
Yeah.
just do all of that stuff and like bathe them, like literally wash them and put lotion on them and all of that stuff afterwards. And maybe that is the scenario that he's describing. I mean, his thing might be, there are some people who are sexually aroused by just things like that.
Yeah, because at first I was thinking, feel you up. Maybe that means that he just wants to pleasure her, but that would could still be considered a one night stand if they went back, to her place or his place, and he pleasured her, and just used his hands to please her. That would still be considered a one night stand. So it still doesn't really make a lot of sense to me.
It's almost kind of like someone with a fetish. It's like, I don't want to date you. I don't want to have sex with you. I just want to do this. Let's get together and just let me touch you.
Yeah, yeah, it is a little bit like somebody with that sort of a fetish. I don't even know what it's called, if there is one, but yeah, it'd be something like that.
I'm
Because
sure
that's
there
what I'm
is.
getting from. Yeah, right. There has to be. There's a name for it. I don't know what it is, but yeah, it's really what this is saying is I just want to feel you up. So he's really, really focusing on the touching aspect of this attraction that he's got for her. Just wants to feel her up, physical attraction, hot and cold reaction, feel you up, turn you out. So he definitely wants to. I take it that last line in the interlude, turn you out, really is to kind of like say, I want to turn you on. I want to give you an orgasm. I don't know.
Yeah,
Really
that's what I take it to mean. Yeah.
So yeah, this is more about, again, him pleasing her through touch.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So then he starts begging a little bit. Come on, baby, come on, let me feel you up. Come on, baby, come on, let me feel you up. Which is just lines from the chorus, just not a full chorus there.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, baby, come on. He says it real fast at this point. And then finally in the third verse, what's the verdict? I don't like suspense. How can you resist my burning touch? Something about the way you walk just really blows my mind. I never wanted anything so much. So again, he's asking for her. Technically, he's asking for her permission. What's the verdict?
But
I
then
need you to
there's
tell me.
that part about the burning. How can you resist my burning touch? How would she know? It was. You haven't. Is that one of those situations where he like put his hand on her shoulder to say these things? It's kind of yeah.
Yeah. It is. It's like sending mixed messages. It's like I need your permission, but I'm also probably already touching you a little bit. I just need to let you know, or I need you to let me know if I can go further with this.
You know what's funny to me is when Prince does these songs like this about not getting the attention. It reminds me that I think on one hand, as fans, we see him as the ultimate, and that someone who could steal your girl, whatever. But we have to remember that that wasn't his reality in high school, in those early 20s years,
Mm-hmm.
and how much of that did he internalize? And how much of that did he still see in himself, especially when he had other people arranging dates for him? And you think that, well, you listen to these lyrics and you're kind of like, well, there must be part of him that still feels that way or can be in touch with that part of himself that existed at one point in time,
Especially if he wrote this in 1981.
Yeah, and he pulled from it to write some lyrics, and it's Prince has his contradictions, and one of his contradictions is that he didn't really think about the past or what have you, or reminisce or whatever. But yeah, he kind of did, because he pulls out these things in the songs, and I was told by someone who actually saw the contents of the vault and had been there, and that he kept a lot of things. Like maybe he was a hoarder, I don't know, but he did hold on to things from his past. So I wonder if, he would go back into those feelings to write some of these lyrics. 'Cause I am a writer, so I do all the time pull from different aspects of and experiences throughout my life and how I felt for those things. So I wonder if that was something that he did as well when he was writing song lyrics, particularly like these.
Yeah, I've wondered that as well, because I think a lot of these feelings seem to be expressed more in his early works, where maybe those feelings and those memories were still fairly fresh, as opposed to when he's 40 years old, writing songs. I mean, he still did, though, not to say he didn't. There's still songs, if you got to seek them out a little more difficult to find them, but they're there, where he still feels that sometimes like he's behind the eight ball when it comes to, getting an attractive woman. But then, I said, the contradiction, then you'll have another song right after it that is about how amazing he is and how easily he can steal your girl. So it's just, it is quite an interesting contradiction.
Right. And you realize that sometimes these lyrics are more genuine to who he was. I think the lyrics about, yeah, I can steal your girl is really bravado and image creation on his part.
Yeah, that's fair. The thing I like about verse 3 is almost like how he delivers these lines. He doesn't deliver them in the same way that he does in the first and second verse. Like he's more agitated, right. He's more aggravated because, you know, he's at this point he's at his wit's end. He wants the verdict. He doesn't like suspense. He says, "How can you resist my burning touch?" So, and he says, "I never wanted anything so much." So he's really kind of getting, like I said, aggravated and agitated towards this woman because he's waiting for her to respond to give him the green light to go ahead and continue to touch her or take her home. I need to
reevaluate how I felt about the song, those lyrics back when I first heard it, when the B-sides came out, compared to now, because now it's like I sit and I think, I'm like, the aggravation in his voice, you know, is the frustration. It's like, it's kind of creepy.
The song can be considered creepy, yes.
Right now. But when I first heard it, I didn't feel that sense of it.
No, most of us didn't. Mm-hmm. There's lots of songs, not just Prince. There's lots of songs that I've revisited over the decades, and
and it's kind of like,
I don't want to play this in front of my kids.
Yeah, exactly.
It's usually what it boils down to. I don't want to play it in front of my kids.
I played this in front of my daughter a couple of weeks ago, and she kind of was like, "Huh?" You could see her just perk up, like, "What? What did he just say?" Yeah.
Yeah. That's what it is what it is. But, you know, I mean, it's still a funky song.
It's funny. He was ahead of his time at one time, and then behind the time when you go back and look at it, it's fun. It's so funny.
Yeah. I think you could probably find aspects of that in just about every artist from 30, 40 years ago. There's going to be dated stuff. Dated lyrics, dated.
But when you think about it in context, it was ahead of its time because no one was writing lyrics this blatant like this, not since the blues.
Mm-hmm. And it's also funny that because this song was released after Love Sexy, you know, like this really purifying, righteous, spiritual album, and he still wants to, you know, he didn't really think that it was a big deal to still express like, this is still me to an extent, you know. But I'm okay with putting this out there
again, because in Love Sexy, the song Love Sexy, when you listen to like the whispers in the back, it's very sexual.
Very much so, yes. That song has a lot of sex in it.
But yes, you could take the boy out the streets, but you can't put him in church and keep him there and keep him there.
Yeah, good one. Well, there really isn't much new else in the song. The only other new lyrics or different lyrics than what we've already talked about is just the line, "I've been digging on you for such a long time. I've been digging on you." That's kind of like in the interlude towards the end of the song, but that's just another expression of how attracted he is to this person, this woman. And he just does a lot more of repeating of the chorus. He does a more repeating of certain lines, like, "I ain't looking for a one-night stand. I only want to feel you up. I don't really want to be your man. I only want to feel you up." It says, "Feel you up, sugar, sugar." It's at one point as well. So really, that's, in essence, from a lyrical standpoint, that's the song. There's nothing else that he expresses lyrically that we haven't already talked about. It's just a lot more of just the jam with, you know, Eric's horns come in more in the second half of the song. Mm-hmm. And the long stroke, he has even more of Eric Leeds horns in it. So, I don't know, that's Feel You Up. I think we've kind of covered it, considering that it's just kind of a straightforward, kind of raunchy, without being explicit, sexual.
Yeah.
And as we talked about a little bit, like, kind of questionable lyrics in 2022 lens. But, you know, that was Prince doing Camille. Camille could get away with a lot of things. And so this is what Camille was getting away with.
And at the time, like I said, when it came out and I heard it, it didn't like catch me the way it does now. Like when I heard it, it's like, oh my gosh, it's just, you know, it's a Prince B-side. It sounds great. Oh my God, I love it.
Yeah, and it was really in line with, you know, the persona that he had put out there, being just kind of very sexually focused.
Right.
Not afraid to express sexuality, you know, in a very overt manner. So it wasn't really that different. He was just, of course, he's talking about things that are I mean, he's asking for consent, but for the most part, the chorus does not imply that. Let me feel you up. I want to feel you up. The chorus, without the lines like asking for consent, you just take the chorus isolated. It sounds worse than it really is.
Yeah, my thing is that I think the Camille persona for him was, like I said earlier, was able to express things that Prince as himself couldn't. And so it's very interesting whenever you hear that persona come through on different songs. The songs they're very aggressive.
Yes, they are.
And it's like, the Camille persona is very confident and doesn't really care. And I think that at the time that Prince developed that, Prince was starting to care a lot because people were questioning how funky he was, et cetera, et cetera. And the Camille persona was the part that's like, I don't care. Mm-hmm. This is who I am, and I'm going to show you, what I can do.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that makes sense as to why he re-recorded the song in Camille's voice.
And I think that's one of the things that has carried out throughout all of his music in his life. Like, even, for example, even with Welcome to America, the song Born to Die, only because what is his name? Cornel West said that he couldn't do what Curtis Mayfield did. And then Prince, I'll show you. Here's the song.
Yeah. Born to Die is very Curtis Mayfield-esque. That's the thing that strikes me about that.
Yeah, I think he's done that throughout his career and just found different ways to do it and different ways to put it out there in this Camille version, this Camille persona. And, this song and others like it are just one of those ways.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with you there, Aisha. Do you have any other final thoughts on the song at all? Anything you haven't expressed yet that you want to touch on before we close it out?
No, I just need to go look for the long stroke.
Yeah, it's out there on YouTube. It's not, again, officially released, but the version's out there. So it hasn't been flagged, hasn't been removed, so take a listen. It's pretty cool. All right, well, where can people find you and what you're up to, Aisha?
People can find me on Twitter at capital AISHA, capital STAGGERS, or Instagram at AK Staggers. Or you can also catch me and Jill Jones and Dr. Vibe Saturdays at 9 p.m. We do State of Things with Aisha and Jill. We talk politics, popular culture, all things newsworthy. And if you follow me or follow Jill on Twitter, you can get the link to the show when it comes out Saturday.
All right. I'll put links in the show notes as well for anybody who's interested in the show. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Aisha. I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to talk, feel you up with me. It's a pleasure, as always.
I enjoyed it.
This has been the Press Rewind Prince Lyrics podcast. I've been your host, Jason Brenninger. You can find the show on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. PressRewind.net is the host site. Links are all over the social media sites. So check it out. And until next time, goodbye.